I've made a video to accompany the water kefir grains that you've bought for me. I thought it might be easier to watch this video than wade through the online booklet. So here are some water kefir grains. They're not actually grains at all. They're little crystals of bacteria and yeast growing together in happy harmony. What we need is, we need a jar. A clip-top jar, if you have one, makes ready fizzy kefir. If you don't have a clip-top jar, absolutely fine. I'll show you how to set it up slightly differently in a moment. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to squeeze those grains out of their sachet and pop them in the bottom of the jar. Now, in the times that we're having at the moment, they might have had a bit of a trying journey, so it might take them a little while longer to recover, but recover they will. It's extraordinarily unlikely that they won't recover. There are literally millions and millions of microbes in there. Now, we're going to make some sugar water to feed them with. I've got some organic sugar here, and what I'm going to do is to make up a sugar solution that is 35 grams per litre. Now, because I do this all the time, I would really strongly advise you to do this. Find a little cup or a spoon so that you only ever once have to weigh out 35 grams of sugar for your litre. So this way it will just mean that you're more likely to do it. So I happen to know that one of these scoops is 35 grams, slightly heaped scoop. We're not talking about ultimate precision here. We're talking about general, yes, in the ballpark of 35 grams. And I'm going to pop that in there. Now, in order to dissolve my sugar very quickly, I can just use a dash, just a dash of just boiled water to speed things up a bit, but you don't have to do that. You can just stir it until it's dissolved. The reason we want it to be dissolved is because the microbes in the grains don't like very concentrated sugar solutions. It can cause them some physiological problems. So we want to make their lives easy for them. Now, I've used organic sugar. It's not as refined and it's got a slightly higher mineral content. Kefir grains are normally quite happy with just plain sugar water, but it does depend on the region that you live in and your tap water. So I find by using organic sugar, you're already adding just a little bit of nutrient in there. Some people like to add raisins or figs. I find it completely unnecessary, and you have to be careful because if you overfeed them, they go to mush. But that can be very easily dissolved. You just have to stop overfeeding them. Right, I've made this up to a litre now and the sugar has dissolved. So I'm going to add this to my grains. They're much more fragile than milk kefir grains, so you do have to be a little bit careful with them. I'm just going to pour this in until there's like a little bit of air in that jar, so I'm not going to quite use all of that. I'm going to leave an inch at the top, and then I'm going to pop the lid on, shut it down, and I'm going to put that on the side for 2 days. Now, what will happen is bubbles will begin to appear and the liquid will become cloudier. Now, some people say, oh, it's going to make carbon dioxide, which it is. It's dangerous to use a clip-top jar. Because we haven't put too much sugar in there, we've put quite a low sugar concentration, the chances of those microbes being able to use that to make enough carbon dioxide to cause an explosion in this jar is absolutely minuscule. I have never come across such a thing. If, however, it is something that concerns you, what you can do is you can replace the catch with a rubber band wound around a couple of times that has a little bit more give on it. Now, some people prefer or don't have a clip-top jar or prefer to grow it in an open system, which, just like with your milk kefir, can lend to slightly different flavours. You will get a slightly more vinegary sort of flavour to your water kefir if you leave the lid open, because there are bacteria in there called acetic acid bacteria, and they need a lot of oxygen to be able to grow. So if I want a more vinegary, less fizzy water kefir, what I'm going to do is cover up the top of my jar with a piece of kitchen paper and a rubber band, and that will allow oxygen more freely into the system. After 48 hours, this one isn't going to be as fizzy, but if I want to make it fizzy afterwards, I can add some fruit at a later stage and leave it to become fizzy in a bottle. Right, 2 days have passed, and yes, I'm still wearing the same clothes. Or here's one I made earlier. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my water kefir jar and I'm just going to taste a little bit. Perfect. It tastes slightly tangy, slightly fizzy, and not very sweet. If you taste a water kefir and it still tastes too sweet for you, leave it for another day or two. That way the bacteria and yeast will be able to eat more of the sugar and you'll end up with a less sweet drink at the end. Now, for me that's ready for straining, so I'm going to use a sieve and a jug, and I am just going to stick that through there. There's my grains. I'm going to give my jug a quick rinse out, and then I'm going to pop these babies straight back into their jar foam. And I'm just going to top those up again with some more 3.5% sugar solution that I've got made here, and they're ready to go again. There we go. Now, here's my finished water kefir. If I've grown it in a clip-top jar, it's probably quite fizzy already and I can drink it straight away. If I want to make it fizzier, I can put it in a bottle and leave it at room temperature for a couple of days without doing anything to it at all, and those bacteria will continue to metabolize the sugar in there. There you can see some of the little bubbles, and it will become fizzier. I'm using a wide top bottle because if you use a narrow top bottle you can get a bigger build-up of pressure, and occasionally people have had an accident. Now, to make it proper fizzy, you can put some bits of fruit in there. I've got some watermelon that I'm going to put in here in a little while, and that's going to make it go completely crazy. Watermelon water kefir is a good one. But now it's ready to go in the fridge, and you'll be able to store that for 3 weeks. Again, if you haven't had kefir before, just acclimatise yourself with a little bit at a time, just to make sure it doesn't give you a mildly upset tummy, which could potentially be the effect of introducing an awful lot of new bacteria and yeasts into your system. Now, the bacteria and yeasts in water kefir, they're transient. They don't tend to live in your gut forever and ever and ever. They're not designed that way. So if you do experience any difficulties, they do pass. Water kefir does contain an absolutely minuscule amount of alcohol, which is worth bearing in mind, but I've never managed to get it to be above 0.8%, and ripe fruit can often contain 1% alcohol, but it's just, you ought to know about it. When your kefir grains grow, they probably will double almost every time you make water kefir. When they start to occupy about a third of the jar, you won't have room for any water kefir. They're self-limiting. They don't tend to grow to more than a third of the volume of the jar. But what you can do is take out half of them and give them to a friend. And if you don't want to give them to a friend, you can give them to a dog or a cat, who both apparently really like kefir grains, water and milk. And failing that, you can just whiz them up in a smoothie. You won't even know they're there, and then they don't have to be wasted. Failing that, you can just put them in the compost. Any questions, you know where to find me.